Abolition Today.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I object to the terminology chosen here, involuntary servitude and slavery. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the justice system and justice for victims. And the people of California have repeatedly spoken on this issue. 3 strikes in 1979, later Marsy's Law, that when you harm your fellow humans, including serious and violent acts at their peril, there's a consequence. We're going to remove the consequence now. Oh, why? Well, do you think that it's going to be just an elevated wage for inmate labor? Lord, no. Mandatory automatic increases in minimum wage for inmate labor. Now, what is inmate labor about? Well, it's about, 1, improving your skills that you may then be more capable to participate as a citizen in your community when you are indeed released. It has an enormous impact on institutional security. And if you give a darn about that and don't want to have a bunch of Attica riots, you better give this a thought. But what you really better think about is the impact on local government. Oh, this is just a cost to the state correction system. Hardly. You think lawsuits about this are not going to march right out into your local jails? It already has. When we did this terrible realignment several years ago, I predicted, and it didn't happen with just in a few weeks, Fresno County was sued. Why? Because the inmate conditions in their jails had to be equated with those in the correctional system under the authority of a federal receiver then and now. Is that what you want to impose on your local government in your communities? Running their jails has to be done this way, and if you're going to do any work, you've got to get paid a minimum wage or whatever that wage is? No. This is about individuals who have harmed their fellow citizens. They are paying the price, which is justice, for the citizens of California and for particularly their victims. Now we're going to thumb their noses at those victims. And we do it here again and again. I'm tired of that. It's time for us to care about victims again, instead of criminal offenders who harm people. Now again, I want to emphasize a point. Used to be good time credits was 50% for good time. Well, what is good time? Well, that means that you've been behaving, that you've been programming the things you're supposed to do. No. I know more about this than I think any of you, by far. And I objected to it all my years at the Board of Parole hearings. Objected, why? Because corrections did not require inmates to earn the good time with an automatic sentence reduction. Why? So that they could control, the Department of Corrections, inmate population. And if they needed more room at the inn, they just started according more credits for more things. Well, what do credits mean? Do credits mean that you went to your AA program or Battered Women's Syndrome program and got it? Applied yourself? No. It means you put your bottom down in a seat and sat there for an hour and you got credit. That's injustice. That is not servitude. That is not slavery. Let's not call it that. Inflammatory language has no place in the justice system, ever how you play it. Realize that this bill has enormous consequences for our communities, for our citizens, and particularly for the aggrieved victims who we, by a vote of aye, are thumbing our noses at.
Many people don't really have any idea of how enormous our prison system has become in a relatively short period of time.
We have 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's known prison population.
If 70% of drug abusers are white and 70% of the inmates incarcerated for drug abuse are black, we have a problem.
Nixon said explicitly, the whole problem is really the blacks. The key is to devise a system that recognizes this while not appearing to.
The remnants, the sediments, the hauntings of slavery are nowhere as evident as they are in the prison system.
The 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery, provides an exception for forced labor in prison.
Chattel slavery is the foundation of the economic prosperity of this country today.
So slavery is still legal in the United States as long as you're in prison.
But we're also talking about the extent to which corporations are very deeply implicated in the expansion of prisons.
It's necessary to understand that the prison industrial complex is being perpetuated, and it's being perpetuated on purpose. People are profiting off of the prison system in a really gross fashion.
Now, why is this country the Great Incarcerator?
Somewhere along the lines, the wool is being pulled over our eyes.
Abolition Today.